back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about the male experience of induced labour. So I've got a few questions for Kebbas, just so we don't start repeating each other. And if you want to watch my induced labour story, then just go back two videos, because it's there. Alright. So this is Kebbas.
Hi.
He's my baby's father.
The baby daddy.
The baby daddy. Baby daddy. So, how were the first 2 days in hospital? And how were you feeling?
The first 2 days in the hospital were sort of a blur. So I remember getting there and things going really slowly. The process is really long. When you first arrive at the hospital, obviously there's nothing that you can do straight away, and you have other people who are at different stages. So we went into the hospital not because the baby was coming right away, it was just because the baby was late. So Shannon was kind of still in the same place as she had been for the past couple of weeks. I was just chilling. So we watched telly, we talked without a lot of pain for the first 2 days until the second evening. Is that right? Third evening. So the first 2 days were kind of a breeze. It was just long. So we had friends come and visit us, we had our parents come and visit us and things like that. And it kind of lulls you into a false sense of security. I know, especially from my side of things, I start thinking in my head, oh well, this is just going to be what it's like, and you forget that there's actually a baby coming.
Yeah.
Because the first few days, I think I spent on my iPad and Shannon was watching Homes Under the Hammer. So what more could you want?
Yeah, it's pretty chill, wasn't it? So obviously, like in this hospital, you weren't allowed to stay. So you had to go home about 10 o'clock every night, and you had to return at 8. Like, how was that for you?
I mean, that was tough and got tougher. So, like I said before, the first 2 days it was quite not easy to go home, but I knew that Shannon was going to be okay in the hospital, and there's nothing more I could do for her. I would just end up on a really uncomfortable chair. So I got home, I'd go on a PS4, or I'd try and relax a little bit and get some sleep, and then I'd be back at the hospital first thing the next morning. But as Shannon progressively got more symptoms and then went into active labour, it was really difficult. I remember one night in particular, where the last night I actually spent at home before the baby was here, where I was at home and Shannon rang me basically screaming, saying that I had to come to the hospital straight away, and I knew that they weren't going to let me on the ward, so I would have just ended up the crazy black man knocking on the door of a ward, just being like, I want to see my baby. So I kept saying that I can't come back to the hospital, they won't let me back in. But she was adamant that she needed me there. One really strange phone call conversation between Shannon and the midwife, and I was allowed back to the hospital, which was a fortunate thing, because then soon after that we went down to the delivery suite, which was a lot easier.
Yes. So, like, how was it seeing me in like that much pain before going into the delivery suite? Because obviously I was only on paracetamol.
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. So, for all the fellas out there, when we jokingly say, "Oh, kicking the balls is as bad as pregnancy," it's not. And there's nothing that will prepare you for seeing your other half in kind of that much pain. And plus, there's nothing you can do about it, which is a bit where you feel a little bit helpless. When I first arrived to the hospital, when it was starting to all kick off, that was when I kind of had to put my big boy pants on and just be like, I just need to help her through it in any way that I can, because there's obviously nothing that you can do physically, but just being there is sort of enough. And as the pain progressively got worse for her, I didn't feel like I could fall asleep, so I didn't feel like I could really rest myself. I wanted to be there for Shannon. So it ends up being kind of a double whammy. You're really, really tired, she's really, really tired, and she's going through something that you can't even comprehend. So
yeah. Yeah, you didn't sleep at all, did you?
No, so I arrived probably about 10 to 12 or 11:30 on the night before Kobe was born, and probably didn't sleep again until
after he was born.
way after.
Yeah. In the afternoon.
I didn't properly sleep. I had a nap when he was born, when I was in a hospital bed, which I think if we'll put the picture on.
Up, yeah.
And which is really funny. And then when I got in, obviously we've got a baby, so we stopped up for a little bit. And there's also a picture that, if we can find it, when we've just got in, and you can see how dreadful we both look. And then I didn't sleep until the evening, so overall I'd been awake for something about 24, 26 hours.
Yeah, about that.
So yeah, people laugh when you say, when you're asked what was it like, and you go, oh, it's the hardest thing I ever had to do, and people laugh because obviously you're not delivering the baby, but it's still the most draining, emotionally tiring 24 hours of my entire life. And any dad who's been around when their baby's born will attest to it as well. They'll say the same thing.
There is a lot of my labour which I don't remember, because I was like literally out of it. Like, I was on my diamorphine, I was asleep, and then I'd wake up in the sleep, but I don't remember much of that. And then after I had a epidural, like, I fell asleep and I don't remember much. But you stayed awake, didn't you?
Yeah.
So, like, what happened in them moments? Because I don't actually know.
So, basically broke down like this. She had something called diamorphine, which is good and bad. So, I think it helped with her contractions, but what it also meant is that it kind of knocked her out. So, she was so drowsy that what would happen is that she would wake up, scream, have a contraction, and then go to sleep. And gradually, as those contractions became shorter and shorter apart, that meant that she would wake up for 5 minutes, then scream, then go to sleep for about 10 minutes, and then wake up and scream again when there's contraction. So she was getting sleep, and she doesn't remember any of this either, but I was awake the whole time. So this happened for probably about 3 hours, where she would wake up and it gradually got shorter and shorter in time. So it'd be every 5 minutes she'd go to sleep for 5 minutes, she'd wake up, scream, call for me, and then go back to sleep again. And as you can probably imagine, from like a selfish standpoint, if I'm trying to be there for her and I was told to try and get some sleep, but it was impossible. So I just kind of had a drink of water, and just sat up and waited. They gave me some coffee, but I didn't drink it because I was like, I don't want to be too wired. Stupidly, I should have had coffee. That's a note to dads: take coffee and drink a lot of coffee, and make sure you have food as well. I didn't have any food whilst I was there, which was dumb. But once it had been about 3 hours, stuff wasn't getting better. The contractions were getting shorter apart, but Shannon was getting gradually more and more pain. And then she had the epidural. That was when everything kind of subsided. So she had an epidural. And then what happened from there?
I don't remember having that, at all. I don't remember.
Well, if you can imagine, I'm stood there with 3 nurses and a doctor, if I remember rightly. They bring out this big ass needle, and they go, we're gonna stick this into your other half's back, and they're explaining the procedure to me and things like that, and I'm like, just do it. I'm not bothered. And you get more cranky, so you end up like your other half. You'll become as cranky as she is, but not to each other, to other people. So you're like, I'm not bothered, just do it. So they said that they couldn't put the needle in when she was having a contraction, because when Shannon or women have a contraction, they're moving all over the place. So as you can imagine, you don't really want a needle in your back whilst you're moving. It's not going to be a good situation. So from there, what happened was, if you can imagine, I'm holding Shannon here. She's leaning on my shoulder. There's a doctor to the right of me holding her as well, just in case she does have a contraction. And then there's another doctor and his assistant who was just stood there, really. I think he was just watching, which is weird. But he's putting a needle in her back, and she had no idea what was happening. I remember she kind of looked up at me once, and she was like, "What are they doing?" I said, "They're giving you an epidural." And she went, "Oh, great." And then fell asleep. And once the epidural had kind of set in, she fell asleep for about 4 hours, was out cold.
That's like the best sleep I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, so that's the one thing to take away, is that for us anyway, epidurals definitely worked, because there was no pain from the point that we had the epidural. From the point that Shannon had the epidural, there was no pain up until he came out. So it was definitely the best solution.
Definitely for us, it was the best solution for us. Like, I don't think I would have been able to carry it on. Like we said, like after I gave birth, like if I didn't have the epidural, I don't think we'd be having any more kids. So we want more kids in the future, but if I hadn't have had that epidural, I'd be like, I'm not doing that again. Because it hurt. I think it's good to you.
Hello.
So yeah, if I hadn't had an epidural, we would not be having baby number 2 in the future.
No.
Like, at all.
From that as well, when Shannon had the epidural, after that she fell asleep for 4 hours, but your adrenaline's so high that it's quite difficult to fall asleep. So in that time I probably should have gone to sleep. I didn't, because I didn't know what was going to happen. So stressed, worried, anxious, buzzed up, that I remember just being sat, just watching her sleep, which sounds really weird, and it is really weird, but it's like a different world. You forget that there's kind of like an outside. In the rooms that they've got, they're really nice.
Yeah, they are. They're so relaxing. It was like low light, and there was there music on when we went in?
No.
I can't remember.
No, I ended up putting music on later on,
That's why
just to kind of keep myself awake. So yeah, that was a particularly stressful experience.
Was it like, did it make any sound during my epidural? Like, not during like when I was asleep. Was I just like flat out asleep, or was I?
You were out cold, like you were in the deepest sleep, because you'd been through so much, and you hadn't slept for a long period of time either.
I didn't sleep well the night before either, because the contractions. As I said in the last video about my labour, Kirby was crowning when the midwife checked, and obviously you looked. But like during the time that I was pushing, how was you feeling? Like, because obviously
near the end.
Yeah, like when I was pushing him out.
I don't know. I think it's quite surreal, because you go, okay, this is it now. This is what you've seen on all the films and stuff. And I remember watching Friends, and that was like, there's like 60 doctors in there, and all the friends, and there was like 3 of us for the first bit, and then the maximum about 2 other doctors actually doing anything, and me just holding Shannon's hand. And because she'd had an epidural as well, what's strange about that is that you can't feel to push.
Yeah, we were watching the screen, weren't we?
Yeah, and I was holding Shannon's hand, and every time she pushed, I would go, and I would push as well, but the only thing I'm going to push out is not baby. So it was just a really surreal experience, and I think I've said before that there's nothing like when your baby is actually born, because in all the process, it sounds stupid, but you kind of forget about that part. You forget that there's going to actually be a baby at the end of it, and you just kind of go through the motions, and you go, oh well, we're just going to get from step to step to step, and then when the baby's actually there, you're like, oh crap, like, I've actually got a baby who is like, he didn't cry when he came out, he was just kind of surprised.
It was so scary, because we were expecting like a cry, but he was just kind of sat there like,
he was just chill.
Yeah, he was clearly ready to come out, but he was kind of like, alright, I guess I'm here.
Yeah.
You said his name, didn't you?
Yeah, I said Kobe, and he
turned his head, didn't he?
He turned his head, and I was like, gone. I was like, Well, who knows his name?
Speaking to the baby when it's in your belly helps, honestly. The baby recognises you so much, it does actually work. We were surrounded by like our parents when you first held him, so what was that actually like? Because we weren't alone when you held him for the first time.
It was weird. It was weird because you're looking at your mom who obviously gave birth to you, and then you're holding your child in front of her. I answered the phone during Shannon actually having the baby.
Yeah, I was pushing and Kev was like, hang on a minute.
So because what you have to understand is when you have an epidural, it's so weird because they don't feel any pain, so it kind of takes the pressure off. Because it's like I don't have to be there for her completely in terms of helping with pain. And I got the phone call.
You don't answer the phone.
No, I would not recommend this because I've heard it ever since, and I will never be able to live that down.
He will never
Instinctively, I answered the phone, and it was my mum, and I was like, "I'm just gonna go speak to my mum," and
so there's me and the midwife there, just like having a conversation, and I'm literally like,
"Listen, I tell you when I knew I made the mistake was when I put down the phone and realised where I was." So I answered the phone and said, "Oh, hey, mum. Yeah, everything's all good. I'm going to have to go because my baby's about to be born." And she went, "Okay." I turned my phone off, I hung up, and I went, "What am I doing?"
I think I glared at you as you were walking in.
I just answered the phone whilst my baby's being born. It was sort of like something out of a comedy sketch. And I think if I'd have had a second longer, when I got back in, Shannon would have probably ripped my head off. So
if I could move my legs, I would have been chasing right after him, like straight away. I'd be like, you need to get back in this room. But because I couldn't feel anything,
I wouldn't recommend that. But it's like a parallel world.
So obviously you've mentioned the whole answering the phone thing. If you were to go back, what would you do differently?
I'd sleep more.
Yeah.
I'd sleep more. I didn't allow myself to sleep whilst Shannon was in labour because I thought I would be missing something or letting her down, but I needed to sleep more. You gotta be kind to yourself, fellas.
Yeah.
And just they're in the best care that they possibly could be. When you get the opportunity to go to sleep, go to sleep. There's nothing more that you can do. In the delivery suite, there is a nurse who is with you the whole time. Yeah. By any chance, if either of them are watching, there was one who was overnight who actually left before we had the baby. They switched their kind of their shifts. Thank you so much, because they were just rock solid, no coffee, no nothing. They're just there. So it gives you the opportunity to go to sleep, and it's not easy. It's not easy to go to sleep whilst your other half is in pain or it seems like she's going through a rough time, but you just need to make sure that you've got as much energy as you can to support them.
I think the one thing I would do differently is be more demanding. Because I went into the hospital and I was like, yeah, it's fine, I don't have a birth plan. But obviously I was waiting a while. My dilation jumped pretty quickly, so I was like, I should have been more demanding on that front, but I wasn't. I was just kind of like, okay. The only thing I was demanding about is you coming back. I think that was it. Any advice for a soon-to-be dad who has never experienced a whole labour or induced labour?
It is a wonderful experience, but it's also really, really, really difficult. And not just for mums, it's really difficult for the dads as well. The mums have to go through the pain part of it, which is extreme, and will never experience anything like that. But what the dads have to experience is the whole emotional side of things. As is a little bit different because it was a long labour. If you have a quick labour, this is probably going to be completely strange sounding. You might have gone into the hospital and had your baby straight away and gone. But if you are in for a long labour, just be there. Just make sure that you take enough stuff to keep yourself occupied. Try and bring your house to the hospital. That's what we tried to do.
Yeah, my dressing gown, my pillow, blanket,
exactly.
Everything.
So just make sure that you're kind to yourself as well as your other half, and don't do that macho thing that we kind of like to do, where you go, no, I'm gonna stop up forever and I'm gonna get you this, that, da. There's a limit, and there's times when you need to take your sleep as well and look after yourself, and be prepared for the roller coaster of emotions.
I know some people do laugh. They're just like, oh well, it's mum going through all the pain and stuff. You should be looking after the mums, but like, it's rough for the both of you. It's a completely different experience on both sides, but I do agree that the men need to look after themselves as well as the women. If you don't look after yourself, how are you going to look after someone else? How are you supposed to look after your pregnant fiance or wife or girlfriend or whatever if you're not looking after yourself, if you're hungry and tired and dehydrated and all this stuff? Last question. What's it like being a dad?
It's crazy.
Like parenthood?
It's the most wild experience that you can ever have, and I spent 4 years at uni.
Yeah.
Like, every day is different. When I get him from work, he's just there, and he wants to speak to you, and he wants to play with you. I'll go, we've got a baby. We've actually got a child. And anyone who knows me well enough, that's a real surprise. Because just I feel like I was going to get to a point when you turn into an adult, and I still feel like a teenager, yet I'm responsible for this whole other human being. But it's the best experience, and you lean on each other. You have good times and bad times, but it's just the best.
Yeah. You were quite anxious though, weren't you? Quite anxious to do stuff.
The first 2 months, all I did was just clean, and Shannon would have the baby time, and I would make sure, literally, that every step that she took around the house was a clean step. Like, I was avidly like, this has got to be okay, this has got to be okay, I'm making sure this is fine, I'll cook, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that.
Which is a great help, but then you didn't really get that one-on-one time that you needed.
No, so, and I think in a way I was kind of avoiding it. The connection between a baby and their mother straight away is so strong that it can be quite intimidating, because it's natural. So they've spent 9 months together, literally. So he gravitated towards his mum straight away, and you can kind of feel like a spare part at times, but the relationship is what you make of it. So if you make the time and you play with them and you feed them and you do everything with them, then they learn to appreciate you as a parent now as well.
Yeah. Like, he wants you more. Like, he gets fed up with me, so he literally looks at his dad until he looks at him, and then he goes to him. I don't get a look in.
Yeah.
So.
We have our playtimes.
Yeah.
If you have any questions on the dad side of things for the labour,
comment below.
Comment below.
If you message on the Jenkins residence on Instagram, and if it's for Kebbas, I'll just pass my phone on to Kebbas. So.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be on a few more videos now. Yeah.
Yeah. We hope you enjoyed the video. Come back on Wednesday because we'll have another vlog or day in the life kind of thing. We need to put this little man to bed. We need to bath him and bed him. So yeah. Bye.
Bye.